recently organized KPMG Enrich 2023 Growing With Less Conclave brought together stakeholders to discuss and highlight innovative solutions to help build a sustainable and inclusive energy future. The conclave witnessed the support of Union Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri. The Union Minister visited the immersive KPMG Innovation Kaleidoscope and lauded the efforts of KPMG in promoting innovation, addressing the energy challenge. The session concluded with Union Minister unveiling KPMG's thought leadership paper, Pivoting to Leadership.
Good afternoon, friends and dignitaries. It's my pleasure to welcome Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas and Minister Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. It is our honor, Minister Sir, to welcome you to this event. I recall last year, you were with us and you made certain observations. We have acted upon them. This year, we await for some more observations from you. One of them I recall was the air conditioning should not be very cold. But with that, sir, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you. And I hand it back to Anish.
We will hear from Honorable Minister, but I just want to say a couple of things. He's been really a guiding force for us. He's given us the vision, lots of things which I'm sure he'll talk about, which are transforming India in the decarbonization journey, but also keeping us secure in terms of energy supplies, because we know that energy security is super important. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. The comment on the air conditioning, I suspect, was made at a time when there was a feeling around that the global energy markets could do with less consumption. But I suspect that comment made then is perhaps equally valid today. Thank you very much for inviting me to your 14th edition of the flagship event, Innovation and Energy Conclave. When I read your title, Enrich, and your theme, I believe, is Growing With Less. And I thought I should start by complimenting you on getting the theme right and having it put in such clear, sharp, short focus. I think the problems that we face today as a global community, and I'll come to India subsequently, those are too well known to require repetition. I think a good starting point in acknowledging what we are up against is to be conscious of the reality. We are facing multiple crises, that's a fact. When I talk about these multiple crises, I mean the crisis in the fuel sector, in food, in fertilizer. We are also struggling globally with issues dealing with availability, affordability, and sustainability, but those issues don't present themselves in the same way that we see them. And I think for me, whenever I have a professional, accomplished gathering of successful people like this, I think it's good to start by acknowledging the differences in perspective we have. Issues of availability would be even more serious if there was a genuine shortage of energy. I think what we are up against is not shortage, but a supply-side management. I mean, let me start with crude oil. The global consumption today, even if half the world is in recession, and we provide some cushion there, should be about 102 million barrels a day. Now, if you take 5, 6, or 7 million barrels out of that off the market through what are called voluntary cuts, you are producing a situation where the equilibrium has been upset because the amount available is clearly short of what the demand and the consumption is. if you really understand what's happening in the world, and I'm glad I'm talking to an audience as enlightened and as well-researched as this, that if you already have a large amount of liquidity brought about by stimulus packages available, and all those interest rates hikes which you have utilized, and you've still not been able to mop up that liquidity, then high oil prices means problem. It means it will go up and then demand will fall. So I want to conclude that by saying that I personally think half the world is in recession and the other half is flirting with the recession. If you look at the global statistics, India, according to the Monetary Fund's latest day, we are growing at 6.3%. I think it will be more if you look at the first quarter's results, etc. But many of the important countries which contribute cumulatively to assessing global growth are showing worrying signs. And I'm not going to go into name calling. Therefore, from our point of view, availability has to be looked at. Affordability, if you look at the equation which I've just outlined, affordability is a very much part of that availability. Because if you release more oil, you already have oil from one Latin American country which is under sanction, another country in the Gulf, Middle East, which is sanctioned. And if you take the existing oil and you remove large parts of it through voluntary cuts, then it will go up, but affordability has to be looked at. From our point of view, the most important thing is that is one of the large, we have the largest population, I think now. I shouldn't use the word one of the largest. We also have a very dynamic population. Our rate of growth in energy is 3 times the global average. So what I would say is that for us, affordability is crucial. We've navigated it so far, and I think we'll be able to do so in future, irrespective of what happens in the future. But equally in that equation, you'll have to take into account the sensitivities of importing countries, and particularly those that are large buyers. I had the privilege of seeing an exhibition. So I want to compliment you for that. When you have a lot of entrepreneurial, innovative talent available, and somebody like KPMG comes along and you acknowledge those people, I think that acts like a booster shot to further incentivize and encouraging that. India ranks 3rd globally in terms of the unicorn count and has over 100 unicorns with a combined valuation of around $350 billion. But my submission to you there is that this is just the beginning. Because as the world changes, as technology changes, as the way of thinking, the approach changes, and these moments come, I think, I should be careful in my word, very infrequently. They come seldom. You know, there was a generation which ended its study of physics by saying that the atom is indivisible. And along came the next generation which said the atom is divisible. Science, technology, they are today propelled by one very major driving force. There may be many others. And one is, I think, in the battle between man and nature, between man and mankind, between human beings and their surrounding, that battle is unfortunately being lost to the detriment of humanity. When I was relatively younger and we were negotiating issues relating to climate, there were a large number of skeptics. And I think in the initial phase, the skeptics actually won the war. And they said that this whole climate change is nothing but a conspiracy against, X, Y, and Z. I think they've been proved wrong. And the skeptics don't easily like to be identified today. Today, the skeptics have to acknowledge that you're no longer dealing with global warming, you're dealing with boiling. And I think the pictures which go around, and that's true of about everything. You know, every age is defined in terms of what happens. I remember when the Syrian civil war was going on, there was a picture of a child washed ashore in some European place, and that captured the imagination about. Today, what we see happening, similarly, brutality, etc., that becomes a defining moment. But equally, when you talk about climate change and transition, I think when you have front page pictures of, rural areas in Greece burning, Arizona, Argentina. It says there's a really serious problem. So I think the transition that we are talking about has received an accelerated push on account of what's happening in the world, and therefore I want to come to India. In a world in which energy was easily available, where it was also affordable, my colleagues and I did a study that starting from the time I was in the university, we divided it into 7-year periods or 7 or 8-year periods. We chose 7 years then because the Modi government had been in office for 7 years. I think that was the compelling. And we took it to 1973, when I happily had a two-wheeler and I took the price of fuel at that point of time. And we used to take great pride in saying that the increase in prices were the lowest in terms of any 7-year period going back to 73. But today the challenge is more, and I'm glad we've been able to address that challenge. Our transition, then I've come to sustainability. Affordability we ensured because we were able to reduce central excise duty on 2 occasions, November 21 and May 22. But I can come now to what we have done in biofuels. But before that, I just want to say, just as I compliment you and through you, KPMG, on your encouragement to startups, I also want to pay a tribute to the OMCs, the PSUs of the oil and gas sector, who have created startup funds aggregating to about over 400 crores. 232 startups have been funded by oil and gas PSUs with a disbursed value of something like 208 crores already. Now, if you look at how the oil sector does, I'm not talking about just profitability, but the scale of their operation, I think it's a good start, but equally I would say that the best is still to come. Because I think what will make the crucial difference in terms of innovation, technology, is the kind of work that is done there, because the little things will be force multipliers. Today, we are the 3rd largest consumer of oil. We are the 3rd largest LPG consumer, 4th largest LNG importer, 4th largest refiner, 4th largest automobile market, and I could go on. But within that matrix, things are changing. I think our biofuels, which I started off and then digressed, we are now very close to 20%. Now, I might startle you, how has he jumped from 12% to 20%? Very simple. You know, when you are stuck at 1.4%, which we were in 2014, then 5% seemed impossible. But after 2014, the Honorable Prime Minister, with a lot of consultation and thought, put together a system, ecosystem. That system produces the results because we have diversified and identified the feed sources. When we reached 11.87%, it was a bit of a hiccup, but now we are again, we found alternate sources. Our utilization of different alternate feeds is doing very well. We are selling E20 blended fuel at more than 5,000 even more plants every day. And I think the target of 20% is within sight. Today, nobody is cribbing here about give us buyback guarantees, otherwise we won't produce ethanol. They're all happily producing ethanol and not worrying about buyback because they know that that 20% mental inhibition which we had, because the automobile sector sold us a pup. They said if up to 20% you don't have to change any parts in a car, which is correct. But what they didn't tell us is that there were, E85 cars were being sold in Brazil by the same manufacturers. So we are very happy that that is again available here. We will have more ethanol, more biofuels, more biogas, compressed biogas. I don't think I have the time for that, but I think that's the general message. I never get too worried about spiraling fuel prices, because in many ways that acts as the biggest boost for that. But therefore, when I talk about prices and the correlationship with transition, I think there's a very interesting relationship there, and it's something that we must acknowledge more. But I think since we lived through interesting times, interesting, the word here being a euphemism for slightly worrying, or if I may use a harsher thing, all our figures were up. And then there come other uncertainties, but as somebody who's always bullish on optimism, I think this too shall pass. So thank you very much.
The KPMG Enrich 2023 Innovation Summit also felicitated Enrich 2023 Startup Search winners. The winning startups are Nexus Power, Aperio Energy, Mini Minds, Minion Labs, Kalish, and Soup for showcasing creative solutions for a sustainable future.